Hello, my absolutely beautiful astrology soulmates, and welcome to your weekly horoscope for the week of January 6th. This week, you guys, is packed with some energy that it's vibrating with a little bit of doubt. It's vibrating with a little bit of questioning our instincts, but there's also a groundedness and a way to work with all of this. And so we're going to talk about all of that. And I really look forward to this week hearing your experiences as well, because I know over here I've been experiencing that Mars retrograde and having this sense of, wait, okay, is that the thing that I want to do? Is that the direction? And kind of, it's a bit odd. The energy's a little bit odd, but there is a way to work with it. Now, as we are going to come around towards the end of the week and get ready for that full moon that it's going to be happening as we get to the 13th, there's some energy that gets grounded. Mercury's going to move into Capricorn. This is actually, I think, a lovely position for Mercury to be in, because our decision making, even in a vibration that's maybe been feeling a bit odd or it's been bringing some pressure in us to the surface, we have a bit more practicality, and that's really, really powerful. Now, we're also going to see that Mars is going to trine against Neptune this week. So my question for you this week is, what is trying to come out of you? What is trying to be birthed out of you? Now, it could be an actual person, but think along the lines of creativity. It's like, it would feel like something is just trying to come out of you. It's trying to live. It's trying to take on its own existence. It's this project. It's this art. It's this thing that you want to say that would start an entire creative conversation. What is that for you? So we'll talk about it as we get there. Now, before we jump into the week, I am so excited. As of January 14th, I will officially be in Australia with you to see our Australian soulmates that are down under. So I look forward to seeing you and meeting you at the FAA conference. If you're going, I will see you there. For those of you that I'm not going to get to see in person, don't worry. Everything is all set to go over here, and you'll still have your weekly forecast. You'll have all the goods. Plus, I will bring you some content from Australia as well. I will also, on February 1st, be teaching over with our friend Adam Eldenboss at Nightlight Astrology. So if that is a channel you follow, or if you don't follow Adam's work, I highly encourage you. He is just absolutely delicious. The astrology is so good. The person that he is also fantastic as well. So if you're not following, not learning with maybe both of us or multiple teachers, I highly encourage you to get into this astrology community. There are plenty of beautiful people to learn from. And of course, last but not least, before we jump into the forecast this week, is if you do not have your digital transit calendar yet from our friends at Wise Skies Collective, make sure you check it out. It's all for 2025. It's walking you through the transits of every week, but it's right to your phone. I get the question often of, well, that's the time that you're giving us in that time zone, but what happens if I live on the other side of the world? The beautiful thing about having the transit calendar is no matter where you are, it syncs up for your time zone, so you can actually see where this is happening in your part of the world. Furthermore, it makes it easier to see and to track your astrology, because the best astrology is your astrology. So make sure you click in the description box down below, get signed up. You can join me over at Nightlight Astrology. You can join me with the digital transit calendar. It's all in the description box down below. All right, beautiful friends, let's jump into what is going on this week. So first of all, as we're coming into the week, something to note is that we're coming in on Monday, our moon day, with the moon in the vibration of Aries. And typically this is very assertive. It's very up. It's like, okay, I'm going to be checking in on where do I need to do some self-care? Where do I need to assert myself? Where do I maybe need to move myself in a particular direction? But because Mars, the ruling planet of this lunation that is happening here on Monday, is retrograde and on its way to a move and a change of position into other cardinal energy, Cancer, I do think that as we're coming into Monday, the energy is a little odd. It's a little particular. You know, you're like, yes, I am ready to start. I'm ready to get this thing going, but I'm also a little bit unsure of exactly which direction I should be moving this bus along. So if you're having that internal feeling or that internal wrestling a little bit as we're coming in on Monday, I just want to, first of all, I want to soundboard back to you that, yeah, absolutely, I've been experiencing it too, but there is something that we can do still with that energy. And the question here I would offer you on Monday is, if you feel like you're not exactly sure where to put your hands are and that energy is like pumping in, it's bringing up things, it's bringing up things emotionally, it's bringing up things that are making you resentful. Why isn't this happening faster? Maybe something's coming up around family, or passive aggressive things are coming up. Whatever it is, something that you can do is just put your head where your hands are. This is a great way to work with the moon in Aries when we're not sure what to do, and to ask the question, okay, in this moment, what can I do, right? That is fantastic. And typically, remember, we're still in this Mars retrograde. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing something that is coming from the past. What can you do? What can you take on that gets something actually like off of your table? You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to work on it anymore. You can move on. That's a great place to use this lunar energy, especially if it is feeling a bit more intense in terms of what's coming up for you. And I keep saying what's coming up for you because Mars is going to pull its retrograde next back into the vibration of Cancer, okay? Now, as Mars is coming back to this retrograde Cancerian space, first of all, I just want us to recall that we have already been here. We have seen this. Okay, Mars began its retrograde December 6th, but if we flash all the way back to October, when we flash back to October, what was going on for you? What was starting to come up for you, especially around things having to do with your family, having to do with how secure your own inner foundations, how secure do you feel? Do you feel secure in your home? Do you feel secure in your space? What is making you feel insecure? Are there themes for you of resentment? If you go back to our previous videos where we've been talking from October until now about this Mars space, is there resentment? And resentment doesn't necessarily mean that I'm angry about something. It's something I'm resending over and over and over again. I'm resending it so I can refeel it and I get some kind of power out of it. So is there something that is in the resentment? Is there, something that's been brewing down below and now it's starting to come to the surface? This is a great time to remember we have been here before. So now as Mars re-enters into this Cancerian space, instead of going, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to be overcome by anger. I'm going to be overcome by resentment, or I'm going to be, the moon's in Aries also, I'm going to be overcome by emotions. What we can remember is that, okay, I'm actually been here and I've been shown already. So now, instead of having that just impulsive emotional reaction, the moon is very reactive, right? Cancerian energy is ruled by the moon, so it's very reactive as well. Instead of reacting the way that I did before, even if I am resentful, even if that resentment hasn't been, sorted out, how can I respond differently now? What portion of me, what part of me can I be a bit more cautious? And I'm learning what I need to do to gravitate away from the resentment, or to see it in a different perspective. This is a concept I've been working with for the last few weeks as well. It's clicking the kaleidoscope, right? When you look in a kaleidoscope and it's got that picture, whatever that one picture is, and then you click it, even just a little bit, and a couple of the beads shift or whatever, and it kind of makes a different position. Either way, you're getting to see it from a different perspective. So whereas this Mars is retrograding back through Cancer, and it's bringing up some things that maybe are very challenging for you to be looking at, even if it's your own action, your own assertion, where you've been going indirectly at something that you need to go more directly at. Have you been avoiding a phone call? Have you been avoiding paying a bill? Have you been avoiding asking a question, right? This is an energy where we can just click the kaleidoscope just a little bit, get a different perspective on it and say, okay, what can I do here? And how can I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective? Now, this is a weekly horoscope update, and it's a general. So again, I want to say in particular with this Mars retrograde in Cancer in your own personal chart, really go to your own personal chart, because what is coming up here is an obstacle likely 2, something that is making you feel like your security is not as grounded as you would like it to be. And this is a place where we don't want to just forge forward impulsively and be like, it's fine, I'll make it happen, I'll do it, I'm going to fix it, it's all okay. We don't want any of that necessarily, right? Instead, it's like, what is that little, the princess in the pea? What's that little pea under 75 mattresses that's making you feel a little bit afraid or a little bit insecure? And take into the other direction what we can really do to work with that all the way until we get to February 23rd is reorganize. Do the things that you can. Reorganize your home. See what can happen to reorganize your internal world. Just put your head and your hands into what you can directly tackle. Okay, later on that day, we're going to see that Mercury comes into a square here with Neptune. Okay, we've got our planet of communication squaring against Neptune, our planet of idealism. Okay, so this always gets interesting as these two are squaring upon one another, right? Because this is going to bring up a space where in that square, maybe you're not so clear about the information that is being shared, right? So this is a great place too on Monday as we're coming into this week. And I just talked all about this resentment. I talked about these looking at a strategy, re-strategizing the way that you can come at something. And then we throw Mercury, Neptune in here. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Is this information correct? Is the information that I am working with, is this correct? Or do I need to look at this from a different perspective? Do I need to consider, okay, maybe I really thought that was working for a long time and it's not, or maybe it is working. It's a great energy to kind of float around in an evaluation of what's working, what's not working, but not have to grab onto everything and just launch and do something with it. It's one of these energies where, it's like just because you think it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And just because you think it doesn't mean that it's not necessarily not true. So it's a day where in terms of energy, I would hold energy and information, just let it flow. Let it be like that loose garment kind of traveling around you, right? Because it clouds our decision making. It's clouding the fact-based information we need to make really strong decisions. And instead we could be interpreting something in a way that is not actually very useful for us. So you see what I mean? As we're coming in, the energy is kind of odd at the beginning of this week. And we need to work with that just a little bit, okay? Now, the other thing that is happening as we get towards the end of the day that I am completely excited about for all of us here on Monday is that we're going to find ourselves in the space of that first quarter moon happening at 16 degrees of Aries. So first and foremost, make sure you grab your chart and you locate 16 degrees of Aries on your particular chart. What house is this lighting up? Is it in connection with any other planets, points, angles, asteroids, anything else that you work with? Do you have a progressed planet that is at 16 degrees of Aries? Because as we're at this first quarter time, first of all, we want to be excited about the actions that are to come, the strategies we are building for the action that is to come. Because as we find ourselves here at this first quarter moon at 16 degrees of Aries, what we know is that this is a 27-month cycle, and it started back in April of 2024 when we had the new moon eclipse at 19 degrees of Aries, okay? So go back to that. What was starting? You were planting some seeds of intention to begin something, to go in a different direction where you were understanding, no one is coming to save me. I do have to move forward in some direction, but I can also position myself in the space with people around me who can help me do this work. Maybe you were doing something that was more about looking at your independence instead of maybe where there was more of a codependent kind of energy happening, and you were planting seeds of intention to really get this independent, go forward with my mission energy moving in that particular direction. However, that was just the time in April where these seeds were getting planted. It doesn't mean that everything was ready to sprout and it was starting to come to a head then. But now, as we find ourselves at this first quarter time, the first quarter time is when things start to get built. You are a builder from now until October of 2025. You are in building mode. However, the ruling planet of this lunation is still retrograde. So where we're going to build is to the inside first. Make sure if you're saying, I'd like to have this experience over here, I want to build my business, I want to change my credit, I want to have a spiritual experience, I want to see a new therapist, whatever it is that you've been calling in to self-actualize. As Mars is retrograde, re-look at your strategy. How are you going about doing that? How are you going about being on the road that will lead to that kind of outcome, right? This is a great energy for that. But also to remember that as you're redoing your strategy or you're asking questions to get a strategy in place, to look at, do I really desire this in this way or for this reason? As you're getting that sorted, as soon as we hit the space of February 23rd, we're going to release this energy forward. We're going to release your new strategy forward and out into the world so that you can start building and start taking on gardening, right? That essential gardening, because Aries is not just the warrior, but it's also known as the sacred gardener, cutting away what doesn't need to be there and tending to the garden so that it always has fresh life. It's always growing. It's always moving. Now, the other thing I want to say about this first quarter time for us to keep in mind is that in the first quarter time, while we are builders, sometimes a builder has to go back and say, I want to refine that wall, or I want that wall to take a different shape, or I actually want to do an add-on, right? That's the same kind of thing. But where we have some universal and cosmic help in a first quarter time is whatever you were asking to start back in April of 2024, the universe is weeding your garden now. It's taking people, places, and things out of your life that do not meet the vibration of what you said you wanted to build at that 19/16 degrees of Aries point in your chart. So go back. What we can do is go back to April. Go back to this time between April and now. Get clarity. What are you fighting for? What are you growing? What are you building? So that way, as the things that are leaving the space are going, let the universe do the heavy lifting. Let the universe take it if it doesn't belong there. You are clear that you are working and building with the very best material that is universally, cosmically in alignment and available for you. This is a great use of this energy. Now, when we do get down to October of 2025, we're going to come to the full moon time and we'll do another check-in on this energy, and we will bring this entire cycle of what you have built, 27 months worth of work, to a close July of 2026. So, that's a lot to check in on. Let me know, what were you building? I'm thinking about it in my chart just right now. I have got Aries in the 8th house space, so certainly things around passive income, and I completely needed to rebuild a section of a business that I was building. So, you know what I mean? What does this look like for you? We have some different investment strategies happening over here. So let me know in the comment section down below, even if you don't have it fully fleshed out, if you haven't grabbed your chart yet, what were you kind of starting at that time that you're looking forward to building as we're under this energy, okay? On Tuesday. Now we are going to see that energy is going to carry well into Tuesday, and then we get mid-afternoon, 2:15 p.m., and that's Mountain Time, Colorado time. The moon, before it goes void, of course, the very last aspect that it's going to make is going to square against this Mars. Mars is getting all the action this week, right? So the moon is going to square against Mars before it goes into its void, of course, period. Now, as it makes this square against Mars, this can be frustrating. I feel like I want things to be moving faster. I want it to be going like this. I want things to be different. I have an expectation of something to look a certain way. Someone is pushing against my boundaries, and I do not enjoy that. It's an energy that I do think you want to be mindful, because when someone pushes on that, when the moon pushes on retrograde Mars like that, you can find yourself snapping at someone. You snap at a coworker, you snap at the baby, and you're like, whoa, who just came in here, right? So it is an energy to just be mindful that with the moon involved, we can be a little bit more reactive. However, when we get just behind that, the moon will step into void, of course, and it's our reminder that the universe is kind and that there is time to rest. There is time to breathe and to stop. It's not all forward motion all the time. It's not all go, go, go. Now, as the moon is void, of course, here, before it jumps into this Taurus vibration, something I would encourage is finish what needs to be done. Just finish what's right in front of you. You know, I'm looking at my desk right now as I'm recording, and I'm like, oh, I can put the Post-its back over there. I can just wipe my desk down and make sure that this is tidy and ready to go. Is there a closet that you needed to clean out? Is there a phone call that you needed to make, right? Whatever it is that is already on the table that can be finished, the Void of Course moon time is great for that if things have to be done. But if you can also just sit down for a little bit, take a deep breath, come back to your being, come back to center, to come back to feel the expansiveness of your own space, or if something feels like it's encroaching in your space, so that you have clarity on what's happening in your own vehicle. This is a great use of the Void of Course moon time as well. Just after that, the moon will shift into stabilizing, more grounding energy of Taurus. And we're going to work with this, of course, for the next 2.5 days. So we have some more practicality to our emotions. We have a bit more grounding, and maybe we even want creature comforts. You know, when the moon is coming to Taurus every month, I really encourage you to have your creature comforts on hand. Even if, you know, depending on where you live, if it's your favorite slippers, or there's a particular treat and you just have it once a month and it's the thing that just brings you back to your own being and comfort. It has the value of comfort and ease and pleasure to you. That is a wonderful place to be. Pleasure is a necessity. Pleasure is not just a luxury. So it's something I would encourage you to take on. Okay. Now, also, just to say, because I do like the food portion, I'm a Taurus. If you feel like having a meal is a little bit more hearty, you know, it's a little bit more, maybe there is a little bit more chocolate. If you're into chocolate, I don't like chocolate, but if you're into chocolate, yeah, bring that in. Just let it be a little bit delicious, okay? Now, what I would avoid while the moon is traveling through Taurus this next couple days, I would avoid, if you can, just too much settling. Instead, if you can have it be like a stimulated settling over the next couple days, you have your nice cup of cocoa or something like that, but you also sit down with your financial planning tracker just to make sure, you know, when you know that your earthly practicalities are in order, there is something very comforting to be said about that as well. So that's going to be our energy that carries us all the way through Tuesday. Now, coming into Wednesday early, we get Mercury moving itself along out of the Sagittarian vibration, where we did get to see Mercury take that retrograde in Sagittarius as well. So even Mercury has been in this dance of kind of the forward back, creating a little bit of this odd energy that we've been experiencing, definitely giving us a space to work on shift, to work on how do we manage and navigate uncertainty? How do we navigate having to be with ourselves instead of running past ourselves, right? That energy, the being. But now Mercury's going to move into the vibration of Capricorn. And I like this position. I know that some people do not care for Mercury being in this position because it's not as fast, it's not as quick, but I like it, especially at this time, because Mercury is our thinking planet. It's thinking information of the mind, the way that we give, we share, we disseminate, we process information, the networks we form around us to give and receive information from. As Mercury travels through Capricorn, we get practical. We get practical, structured, organized communication, and this can also help things feel a little bit more on track, where it's like, okay, I do know what's happening. I am making a plan. I am making a strategy, right? Mars is still retrograde as well. So this can help me think through the strategy, think through the actions that I need to take in order to be successful, you know, and you just had your cocoa and your financial planning log out. So now that Mercury is here in Capricorn, you can sit down and really draft out that budget. You know, what are the action steps that you're going to take? What's the plan that's going to lead to long-term success of that budget? Maybe you're going to sit down and write that monthly newsletter or email that you need to do. Is it time for you to update your resume? You know, what's another Capricornian things? Whatever it is where you need to organize your ideas into actionable steps. This particular transit, I think, is going to be fantastic for being able to do that. Some of which I do think that we're going to have this conversation, obviously, about how do we engage and what decisions are we making in the world, right? If you are, I want to move. What do I do with my taxes? What are the new tax laws? What are the new things for my children in this next grade that they're in? You know, some of these practical things will just be coming up, and I think that Mercury can be very useful here. I also think it's useful next to the next aspect we're going to experience, which is the sun coming into a square with Chiron at the end of the day here on Wednesday. Now, the sun is bringing light, heat, life, and motivation. We are motivated. I want to do this. I want to be here. I'm about this, right? So it's a lot of really beaming energy. However, squaring against Chiron, what can happen is an insecurity can come up. I'm really motivated to do this thing, but I'm running into a version of maybe my old identity, right? It doesn't mean we necessarily were meaning to, because Chiron in Aries, and Chiron is direct now. Chiron's not retrograde anymore. So that old identity of self, who we were, what we desire, what we're about, what our boundaries are, Chiron has done a lot of work at healing that particular wound. So there's hopefully been growth. There's been learning. There's been some healing that has come in there. But the sun is like, I'm going to get organized. I'm going to have this long-term plan. But in order to make a plan and make a goal, we have to face the truth that we're starting at not having the plan and the goal. And that can be bumping against this old identity. And we're going, oof, like I'm feeling insecure about it. I'm feeling insecure about like an old wound that came up. How come I didn't do better? How come I didn't do better financial planning? You know, how come I wasn't a better leader? These things can be the stories that start to creep up under this particular aspect. And I want to give you an example of this. Right? So let's say that you are work or home, pick some place where you're at, where others get to give you feedback. And someone may say something to you about, you know, how come you didn't have this done? Or how come this is like this? And instead of going, oh, it's, you know, whatever, I just did it this way, having this nice natural response, what can happen is we feel an inadequacy, like that Chiron gets flicked, the wound gets flicked, a little salt gets in there, right? We can get responsive. And it's like, I'm failing to meet expectations. I'm not meeting my expectations. I'm not meeting their expectations. And under a square, the tension is here. It's the 911 of our aspects that says, I'm going to have to do something. Now, what am I going to do? Am I going to freak out and respond from the old wound that was triggered? Or am I going to take a step for a minute? That moon is in Taurus. Ground for a second. Breathe. Think. Instead of just responding, this is an opportunity to identify what that just clicked up for a second and respond from the healed version of you, right? Give the healed version of you, or the incoming healing version of you, an opportunity to reveal itself, to practice, right? Because, you know, I don't know about you, my experience of my healing, of my identity, of my being is not that I just go over here while Chiron is retrograde and I'm like, yes, it all hurts. And then I come back to the table and I'm better. Like this next version of me that has different boundaries, that has different desires, that doesn't take behaviors and give out impulsive responses the way that the wounded version of me did. I have to bring her into practice and existence, right? I have to practice the spirituality of the second thought. I have to practice the action of the second or third thought, where a more healed version of me is presenting themselves. But if we can take that moment to go, okay, hold on, I can identify what that is and what that brought up in me. And if I respond this way, it's just going to hold me back, or I can practice a different response, because a square doesn't mean that you have to be nasty. A square means you just need to take an action. It's going to trigger an action in you, but what are you going to do with it? So it's a really neat energy, I think, here on Wednesday to also, while the world's not flushing itself forward, we're not popping out of the cake for New Year, new me, to say, well, wait a minute. That's funny. That person actually said that to me. I felt the inadequacy come up, but my second response is something different. Like you can even see it in yourself. Okay, anyway, so that is what is going on Wednesday. Now, Thursday, we're going to carry that energy through as well. in the mid, this looks to see about what time is this? So about 3:46 p.m. Mountain Time, that's Colorado time, going until 6:06 p.m. We're going to see that the moon is going to make a sextile to Neptune before it steps into its void of course time. Now the moon Neptune energy here, again, I feel like it makes things a little bit confusing. It's great for creating. Oh, it is fantastic for creating. If you wanted to create something, you want to do some art, you want to dance, you want to let something, come up out of you. If you wanted to sit down and do a spiritual meditation, accessing some of that slowed down energy might be a little bit easier. And it is a sextile, so you're able to intelligently take action on it. So now, Neptune being in Pisces as well is a vibration of finishing. Pisces is also about finishing, bringing things to culmination. We're vibrating with that Neptune in these last few degrees of Pisces anyway, so it's really nothing new is happening. It's about finishing. So this is it. Maybe you're going to finally clean out that closet you've been avoiding. You're going to finally finish writing that song. You're going to do that astrology homework, and you have kind of a bit of a renewed focus. It's a little bit easier to get to it. So I hope that that's the case for you. I really do. Now, just behind that, the moon is going to come into chattery Gemini. Now, we've had a lot going on, even just this week. So as the moon moves into Gemini, we're like, hold on, I want to share some things that I've learned. I want to talk. I want to talk it out. I want to share. I'm curious. What have you learned, right? So the moon, our energy gets a bit more communicative about what's happening and what's been going on. Maybe you're even talking it out. You're finally making those phone calls, whatever it is. There's a sharing energy, okay? But when the moon gets into air, we also can move just from the emotional space to the mental space. So I have to think about how I feel or talk about how I feel so that I can get to what I'm really feeling. And that's kind of an interesting, energy, but it's a great place, if you think about it, to connect with a friend or to connect with people who are like you, because it's like I start talking about what's going on with me, and then what's really going on with me really starts to show up. And it's like, oh, wait, I just did this the other day. I said, I was thinking about building this product. I was talking to Tiffany from Wise Skies, and I said, and I think this, and I was like, oh no, I don't actually think that. And she's like, yeah, no, you don't actually think that. And it's so funny how we can just love on each other and help each other do that. So it's a great day over the next couple of days for a bit of talk therapy, or not talk therapy, but just beautiful talking. Now that energy again will carry us through Friday. We will see that here on Friday, the moon makes a couple connections here. On Friday, it's going to come in contact, of course, with Jupiter. That's also in Gemini, and that can be fine. That's mid-afternoon, and it's like everything's so great. It can be very, very expansive, very optimistic, but just behind that, we will also see that the moon comes into a mutable square with Saturn. So it's like here you were expanding, it's all good, I'm going to do this thing. And then it comes into a more restrictive energy with Saturn. So it's like, oh, okay, hold on, I need to reground for just a second. It doesn't make it bad, but it's also an opportunity to come at something from that more mature perspective. It's like, yeah, I do want to just throw the paperwork and say, forget this job, but also I do like having money and paying my bills. So this could be an energy. It is a day of progress, but here's something else to think about, because this is a lunation, and as it comes into contact with Saturn, sometimes what can happen is we feel like we have, like our relationships or the energy around us really does get limited or more serious in some way. So if you're feeling like there's a bit of emotional distance between maybe you and your person, you and your partner, you and your children, or, you've had to settle down from all of the expansive energy and you're like, I actually have a deadline and I need to do this. There's something beautiful about discipline. The discipline that Saturn brings. There's something freeing about the discipline that Saturn can bring in, as long as it's done within, the appropriate limits. And there is a space, I think, for us to look astrologically at this and say, Saturn also helps us to realize our limitations so that we can focus on getting a task done. And there is so much, I think, to be said, especially right now, while the energy is not just flowing forward, it's more moving around and moving backwards, to celebrate the small wins. Did you drink all of your water today? Did you prioritize whatever needs to be done for your health, your protein? Maybe you haven't been the best at being able to just keep your attention on one thing for even 15 minutes. And today, did you get to minute 13 instead of full 15, but you got to minute 13? Did you get on that treadmill and do a little walk today? Did you sit down on the floor to do the breath work, even if you fell asleep during the meditation? Celebrate a small victory. It doesn't have to be we're all entering the hallway of severe discipline. Small victories are still victories. Okay, when we get over here, where are we? We are on Saturday. Okay, so Saturday, we are going to see, the moon is still traveling through this Gemini vibration. We're going to be getting ready here for the moon to move into Cancer, though, so it should be void, of course. Yep, there we go. About 5 p.m. Mountain Time until 9 p.m., 9:23 p.m. to be exact, here on Saturday, as the moon comes into this square with Neptune as its last aspect before it's actually going to go void, of course. This, again, can be an energy that is like, the information is just not clear. It doesn't necessarily feel clear. It is highly creative, though. The other thing I suppose I would just bring to some attention is that around your creativity, let that soar, play with that, let that come out, But around information, this can be, there's like an unrealistic expectation that can be here. And we're in the navigating expectations department, I think, right now. So as long as it's not, an experience where you just have someone or something on a really high pedestal, which is so hard for them as well, because then what happens if they fall off of that, right? I forget people are human sometimes. It can also be a space where somebody says one little comment to you, you hear a line from a movie or a podcast or something like that, and it sparks this new creative thing to come up and out of you. As much so, it can be that a friend says, oh, you look a little tired, and you take this and you're in your 7th lifetime, you're taking the comment way too far, and this can create a little bit of turmoil. Instead, let's give people the benefit of the doubt to the best of our ability, but also if people are pushing on those boundaries, this particular square may have you being a bit more reactive to that. Just behind that, the moon will move into Cancer. The moon coming home into domicile is not only restorative to the Cancerian area of your chart, but I think when planets are in their domicile, we all get a bit of restoration. This can be an energy of, my emotions. How are my emotions? How is my security? How is my emotional intelligence? How is my emotional sensitivity? Am I tapped in here? Maybe we feel like being a bit more private. I just want to go home. I want to connect with family. I want to connect with my own space. I want to connect with self-care. I want to connect with not having to be so out in the elements, doing, producing, going back over things. I want to sit. I want to be in my shell and enjoy my space. Now, I think too, preparing for Jupiter to come into the vibration of Cancer. Every month as the moon comes into Cancer, something that we can be asking ourselves and playing with is, do I feel good about my space? Do I like where I live? Do I like my home? Do I like my actual shell that I live in? Do I like my body? Does my insides? Do I like where I live? Is there something that I need in terms of self-care? What fills my cup? Who fills my cup? Who am I around? What loved ones are in my space? Whomever that be, actual family that we have chosen, pets, what fills your love cup? These are questions we can look at in this particular space. And if you do feel like you want to be a little bit more private, you want to come home, this would be a great time under this Cancerian energy to make that move. Now, that energy is going to, of course, carry us into Sunday. And as we come into Sunday, I love it. The moon is in Cancer, and it is going to come into this beautiful trine with Venus, who is traveling through Pisces. It's a water trine. I like this. It's a harmonious aspect, meaning there's an ease here with what I'm trying to attract, Venus, with what I'm trying to call to me, with unconditional love and forgiveness that I am trying to give, with endings that no longer serve me, that I don't want to hang on to, with my generosity. I am attracting it to me, And it's also being done with a fair amount of ease, where this moon is going, yeah, that doesn't actually make us feel safe or secure anymore, or in a more very practical way, right? The moon is saying, I want to love, I want to nurture, I want to be loved. And this Venus in Pisces is, maybe I want to spend the day in service. Maybe I'm volunteering at the kids' school, or I'm volunteering at something in my community. I'm really getting down on the floor and enjoying that quality time with my loved ones. I'm pampering myself. We all have a cup of hot chocolate, right? Venus is still a beautifully indulgent, empowered energy, especially here in Pisces, where Venus can just be kind, can be generous. There's a socializing aspect where we want to expand and share this generosity. Maybe there's some yoga. There's a nice yoga going on, something like that. It's a really lovely fill the cup kind of energy. Now, behind that, before we're going to get ready to end out the day, we see that Mars, of course, still retrograde, now comes into a trine with this Neptunian energy as well. Again, we've got some water energy working its way around here. And as Mars is here, this is where I think that, maybe there really is some yoga, but certainly Mars here in Neptune is going to bring our attention back to what needs to be surrendered, because there's nothing to be gained from it. What's the value of holding on to that? What's the value of that? What's the value of taking an action that is generous? What is the value of, the place where maybe we blend together imagination and creativity, and we channel that through some kind of spiritual gift? We click the kaleidoscope and go, wow, I never actually looked at this situation from that perception, and now I can take the action of forgiveness. I can take the action of release. Oh man, I hadn't even thought of that, but I just want to create. I want to paint. I want to do any of these things, whatever it is that kind of aligns with something that has a deeper value for you, that allows you to just release what the material world has said about fill in the blank situation, and be in this space where you're more inspired and you're taking action based on that. I think that this is a great day, as we're coming to the end of the day on Sunday, to wherever you have felt humanly, worldly, materially stuck. This is an aspect of gentleness that says we can come at this differently. We can come at this differently. We can, maybe we don't have all the discipline in the world to have the financial life that we want today. Maybe the business isn't fully built. Maybe the relationship with the parent isn't fully healed. Maybe I don't fully understand my husband, wife, partner just yet. Maybe I don't have all of the astrology down yet. But what if I created a vision board today of what I would like this area of my life to look like, so that I can remember where this inspiration that is trying to come up and out of me, something is trying to come up and out of me and be birthed into the world, and it aligns. And maybe I need a little help. I need a meditation. I need a vision board. I need to see it so that I can stay inspired about these steps and the strategy I'm going to build with these steps that get this creative thing to come to life, right? So I think that Sunday is a great day for that. We'll pull a little bit of that energy in on Monday, and we will also get ready for that full moon that is coming on Monday in the vibration of Cancer. I hope that each of you has an absolutely beautiful week, regardless of what is coming up for you. Just know I'm sending you love on the journey. We are all just walking each other home, and I am glad to be a part of your walk today, of every week. And of course, your February videos will be out here shortly. Now, check out this video here, because I've got a little something for you next. If you haven't already gone through your January videos, or you haven't already gone through your 2025 videos, I'll make sure that's at the end as well. And your February videos will be along the way shortly. I love you guys. Have a great week.